This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome back to Live Talk with Dr. B. Hill. We have continued guests today that we're anxiously hearing from. If we have any visitors, which we do, we just ask that you use the chat button if you have any questions that we would love to answer for you. So, Dr. B, take it away.
Thank you so much. And we have Travis, and we also have Dr. Smith again today, which is absolutely wonderful that they have been here with us and going through everything in detail for quite a while now, which is really, really good. And I thank you so much, Dr. Smith and Travis, for going ahead and doing this. And I would like you to go ahead and take it away. And I will get off the screen for just a little bit, and I will be back.
Thank you, Dr. B. Travis, how are you today?
Doing good, Dr. Smith. How about you?
Good, good. I know we've got somebody listening with us today, and this is somebody who's interested in the DNA test. And so, I know this is a very busy person, and they can only be with us sometimes for a short time. So, real quickly, I wanted to run through a couple of slides on the screen specifically for for our person who's visiting us today. Christy, thank you very much. Travis, you and I have talked about this one quite a bit. And what I wanted to point out for our visitor today is what you're looking at here is the actual OPRM1 gene. This is the diagram that geneticists use to speak to each other. This is the language that they use. As you can see, a gene has two ends in the middle. It is a kind of a long thread of information. And then there at the bottom, you see the blue and the red columns. The blue columns being the opioid naive, and the red columns being the opioid dependent. And as can clearly be seen, there is a difference between the opioid naive and the opioid dependent. The red column is taller than the blue column. What this means in terms of science is that the red areas have a higher degree of what's called methylation. That's the name for the poisoning. And Travis, this is something that you and I have talked about quite a bit. And while we have our guests with us today, I wanted to get this out there. Travis, you like to put things in terms of common sense, and I agree with you. I share that with you. You and I both like to break things down to a common sense level. And our hope is that by breaking things down to a common sense level, we're presenting things in a way that people can understand. So, Travis, just common sense here. When you look at that amount of damage spread out at multiple locations, all up and down a gene, Travis, common sense, do you think that gene's going to be able to work normally?
No, Dr. Smith, I do not. It's not going to function properly, and it's probably going to affect the body as well.
And that's just common sense. Okay, it doesn't take 5 years of studying to be a geneticist to look at this diagram and go, you know what, that thing's not going to work right because it's got poison all up and down it. Okay, so, and knowing that this is the gene, it's called the OPRM1 gene, opioid receptor mu, knowing that this is the gene that manufactures, that's what these genes are, they're little factories. That's all this gene is. It's just a little factory. That's all it is. It's a little factory. It makes one thing. It makes a receptor. And inside the information in that gene is all the information you need to make that receptor. So knowing that this gene is nothing but a little factory and all it makes is little receptors, and knowing that this gene has damage all up and down it. Okay, Travis, would you expect that the receptor that is made from a gene that has this much damage, do you expect that receptor to be normal?
No, Dr. Smith, I do not. There's
And
no way
again,
it would be normal. No way.
and is that just not common sense?
To me, yes. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor, but the past couple of months of me studying this and learning about it, there's no other way but to say it's common sense. If you can't understand it, there's something wrong. I mean, common sense wise, there's something wrong with you.
Well, the
I mean,
science
'cause
can be hard to get through. It is some tough science.
oh
But
yeah, yeah, but the
if
way
you
you
look at
break
the
it down,
gene,
Dr. Smith, it any common person could understand it. So to me, the way that you break things down, it makes sense in my mind. I mean,
So
and
the
I'm not a
gene is a little
scientist.
factory. Does that make sense?
Right.
The gene's a little factory.
Yes.
It's just a little factory.
Yep.
Okay.
That
It
makes
does it
sense.
does it does one thing. Okay. The other night my granddaughters came over. We made chocolate chip cookies. That's what we did.
Hmm.
That's all we did. We made chocolate chip cookies. Okay. That gene makes a receptor. It doesn't make anything else. It doesn't have any other job. We made chocolate chip cookies. We didn't make oatmeal cookies. We didn't make any other kind of cookies. All we made was chocolate chip cookies. Okay. Quite a few of them disappeared while we were making them. But the point is, that gene has one function. It is a factory. It
To
doesn't
only
make
make
chocolate chip
receptors.
cookies.
Yep.
It doesn't make cookies, right? But it makes the receptor.
Yep.
Okay. That gene, okay, well, you're looking at right there. That's from our clinical trial. And Travis, your DNA is included in that screen right in front of you. There is no way in God's world that that gene, with all that damage, is going to make a normal receptor. Okay, that would be like as if you took away part of our oven and asked us to make chocolate chip cookies. You need everything to make it right. And when the gene is been damaged, and Travis, you and I have talked about this, the specific damage done to that gene results in something called gene silencing. Everywhere the red column is bigger than the blue is an area of the DNA that got turned off.
Turned
That's
off
the damage
permanently.
that happens.
And that's
Permanently turned off.
permanently turned off. Yeah.
Permanently turned off. How can you expect that little gene to do its job when you went in helter skelter and just cut things off left and right? There's no way that gene can make a normal receptor. So if that gene can't make a normal receptor, that gene's still going to make a receptor. That receptor is going to be abnormal. You get enough abnormal receptors in your body and something's not going to work right.
Yes,
Now
Dr. Smith, I agree.
the question is, and what we don't understand is, and this is a fundamental question, and I don't know if we'll ever get an answer in our lifetime. But the fundamental question is, why do the symptoms manifest when people attempt to stop taking the opioids?
Well, if I had to make an educated guess, I would say because their adrenaline gland has been so badly damaged that, you know, that has a lot to do with it. Because you got the norepinephrine, the epinephrine, and then the dopamine. And if you
Chrissy, let's
have,
jump ahead to the catecholamine slides. Sorry, Travis, I interrupted.
no, you're fine.
The reality is we don't have a clue, and our hypothesis doesn't give any insight into why people get sick when they try to stop taking the opioid. We have no earthly clue. Just like we really have no clue why people feel a little bit better when they take an opioid when they're sick. We actually have no clue. But now, Travis, what you're talking about here, and let's make sure this is
Is this a different catecholamine?
yeah, that's catecholamine slide 2. That's the catecholamine slide after a dose of buprenorphine. So we're looking for the catecholamine slide, the one before that, catecholamine slide 1. But Travis, what you're saying here is that the type sickness that we're seeing in our people, we believe that the abnormal receptor that's made by the damaged DNA no longer works normally. Boy, that's a leap in faith, huh? That's a big scientific breakthrough. You damage a gene, you got a bunch of damage in there, you turn off a bunch of stuff, and the receptor that it makes no longer works normally. That's our big leap in faith. To us, it just seems common sense. But we believe that what's happening here is when people attempt opioid abstinence, they are, for reasons we understand, losing control of the nerves that control the organs. Okay, the organs don't just sit there in your body. Okay, they're all connected to each other by nerves. Okay, and those nerves are overseen by the nervous system. And you try to have, some degree of homeostasis and balance in your body so that, things work when they should work. The rest and digest, the fight or flight. You don't want to be, you only have so much energy in the body. You only have so much energy in the body. Okay. And you've only got so much energy you can devote to the brain, so much energy you can devote to the muscles, so much energy you can devote to digestion. Uh, and the body tries to organize what's working when. And evidently, this opioid receptor is somehow involved in the balance of all that, so that you're not resting and digesting while you're trying to fight or flight. So when you're running from the bear, you don't fall asleep. Okay. Um, and so Travis, our belief is when people attempt opioid abstinence, what's happening is they're losing control of the nerve going into the organ. Specifically, they're losing control of a type of nerve that are part of the autonomic nervous system. They're not, um, uh, and this loss of control of the organs is what's so unbearable for people. And uh, Travis, you've been through withdrawal, and you've experienced
Yes.
loss of control of the sweat glands, lost control of the hair follicles, lost control of the heart rate, lost control of the bowels. But Travis, what you did was you volunteered for our clinical trial, and you allowed yourself to go into 3 days of withdrawal, and then come in and have your blood drawn, because our theory was, our belief was, if we draw blood while people are in opioid withdrawal, we will see abnormal adrenaline levels, abnormal catecholamine levels. Okay. And we thought this would be good proof that the body is losing control of its organs. There's no blood test you can do to show that your sweat glands have lost control. There's no blood test that you can do to show that your hair follicles have lost control. There's no blood test that you can do to show that your bowels have lost control. But there is a blood test that we can do to show that your adrenal glands have lost control. And Travis, you came in on day 3 of opioid withdrawal. You felt terrible. You had your blood drawn. And if I'm not mistaken, your number's 700 up there. And you have not one, but 2 abnormal catecholamines, 2 abnormal adrenalines, both of which, in my opinion, and with a background in emergency medicine, are high enough to kill you over time. It's amazing that people survive this as they do. And I worry about damage they may be uh, uh, maybe occurring while they're having this type of adrenaline toxicity, because adrenaline toxicity does not happen in a vacuum. Travis, I know I've asked you this question many times before. I'm going to continue to ask this question. You have experienced a loss of control of your autonomic nervous system. You have experienced a loss of control over your internal organs and the organ functions. You have experienced a loss of control of the fight or flight response. You have experienced a loss of control of the rest and digest response. That's what all of our people have experienced. You have experienced adrenaline toxicity, catecholamine toxicity to a level that's just simply unbelievable. Travis, for our providers that are listening, what does the loss of control of these organ systems, what does that feel like?
Dr. Smith, I've told you before, it's a hard explanation to give somebody unless they've been through it, but I could only tell you this. I wanted to die other than continue to feel the way that I was feeling. Like I remember looking at my wife and telling her that I wanted to die. I wanted it to stop. And then if it didn't soon, that I was probably going to run out in front of a car. Like I told her that. I was like, I feel so bad. I just want to run out in front of traffic and die. Like I don't want to be alive anymore. Like it was that bad. It was very, very bad. And it got worse as every day went on. As every hour went on, it just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And it didn't feel like to me it was ever going to stop until I got my medicine. So when I knew I was on the way to get my medicine, I was kind of relieved, but I was still just so sick and desperate and just wanting it to stop.
How
It,
well
it
do
was
you remember it?
I'll never forget it. That's how well, because it was that bad. It was that horrible going through it. Now the first day was kind of blurry. Uh, I don't know why, but the first day, well, the first day when it actually kicked in, because the night before when I had first quit taking my medicine, it was about, I want to say, a good 8 hours, and I felt okay. But after that 8 hours, and I knew I didn't have any medication to take, that's when it just kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I mean, I remember even calling my mother and I was like, can you just bring me my medicine? I can't do this. And she was like, no, because you made me promise you, no matter what you said or did, I would not bring you the medicine because you have to do this experiment. And I was like, all right, all right. And I just kept saying, okay. But really, I was trying to do anything in my power for her to bring that medicine over. That's why I intentionally gave my mother the medicine, because if it was out of my house, if it would have been in my house, I wouldn't have been able to do the study. I would have, I don't care. No one would have stopped me. I would have went and got my medicine. So I had to make sure it was out of my house because it was bad. I
So
knew it
you
was going to be
remember it.
bad. I just didn't know it was going to be that bad.
You remember it well.
Yes, I'll never forget it.
The fact that you say, I will never forget it, we believe is reflective of the elevated epinephrine levels. We believe that epinephrine has a role in the brain of imprinting whatever happened to cause the surge in epinephrine. Your body, your brain wants you to remember it so that it never happens again. This is why children don't put knives and forks into the electrical outlet twice. Okay, but this is a reflex, uh, uh, an advantage from an evolutionary from evolution point of view, because if you remembered that bears will bite you, okay, you're more likely to avoid the bear. Okay, and the thing that helps you remember that bears can bite you is that last time the bear bit you, you got a big surge in epinephrine, and your body remembered it. So the fact that you say I will never forget it, I hear that and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much consistent with an epinephrine level of 153, which is I think is what yours was.
Yes,
Does that make sense?
yes, 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 Dr. Smith.
So, Travis, if you were to say to me, hey, I want to know, I've now had elevated epinephrine levels for days. I've now had elevated adrenaline levels for days. I want to know how this impacts the body. I want to know how this will impact me. You know what research I would go to, Travis?
What's that, Dr. Smith?
None.
Because there is none.
Correct. What you experienced, Travis, the blood results that you were looking at on that screen right there, there is no research to guide us at all. That's what these psychiatrists and these addiction experts, this is where they've gotten us. Okay, they've gotten us into a position where people are experiencing widespread adrenaline toxicity, and we as physicians have no insight into how to guide them. Okay, because we were told and the research dollars were spent that, Travis, what happened to you was a brain disease. You had a mental health disorder. By the way, let's make this very clear. The blood work that you see on the screen right there, Travis, the blood work, part of which you were a volunteer for, that blood work shatters the myth of this being a mental health disorder. A mental health disorder, by definition, you have to have normal blood levels and everything else. You can't diagnose depression in a person who has low thyroid. Okay, these blood levels that you're looking at right there make the diagnosis of opioid addiction an impossibility. Travis, you weren't craving to get high on opioids. You were craving to get out of the horror that you were in. That is the loss of control of the autonomic nervous system.
And
Okay,
we call it being sick, but you know, just letting you know what most people that have taken opioids, they call it being sick.
were they
But it
craving to get high?
no, you are trying not to be sick. I've said that a million times and I'll say it a million and one more because it's the God's honest truth. It's if you take 1,000 people who's been on opioids and you know, whoever has labeled them addicts or whatever you want to say, but I don't believe in that. Especially after our proof that we have here with the scientific proof. But You could ask 1,000 different people and they're all going to tell you the same thing. I know they will. I can say that with confidence. If they've actually been on opioids and they know what it's like to wake up every morning and be sick and be scared to death that you're going to be sick, they're not going to say, hey, I woke up every morning trying to get high. They're going to say, I woke up every morning trying not to be sick because I was scared to death of being sick. Because like I said before, once you've been through it one time, you're not going to want to go through it again. It's that bad.
Uh, Chrissy, uh, while we're talking, let's jump ahead to the next slide, which is the Dr. Lou slide. Travis, I said we don't have any research on what it's like to experience adrenaline toxicity, catecholamine toxicity, and quite frankly, in the human, that's true. We got a little bit of research. We do know that if you study people who have been in major trauma, really bad car wrecks, things like that, serious high level trauma, if you measure the level of epinephrine in their urine, you can get a pretty good idea who's going to develop PTSD and who's not going to develop PTSD. The higher the level of epinephrine in the urine, the more likely the trauma patient will develop PTSD. Now, Travis, you can take that information and bring it into your world. Okay, you had very high epinephrine levels, and Travis, you may ask yourself, if you have a form of PTSD as a result of what you have experienced. I personally think the answer is yes, but I'm not a PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder expert. But Travis, you've got to admit what you went through has had a lasting impact on your thinking.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Dr. Smith.
Yeah,
It
you
most
remember
certainly
it
has.
clearly, and you will avoid it at all costs.
That is correct.
Yeah, yeah. What we have on the screen here, by the way, Travis, I don't have any other evidence than that. I wish I had more. I could say, oh, Travis, this is what happens to people. This is what, you take 1,000 people, you put them through that. This is what happens. We don't have any kind of information like that. Travis, not only are you a very brave participant in our clinical trial, in this regard, you're a pioneer because got no guidance for you. You're on non-studied grounds, as crazy as that sounds. But Travis, the slide you see right here, this is what little bit of evidence we do have about catecholamine toxicity, adrenaline toxicity. And I don't know how many minutes we have left here, and this is a somewhat complex slide, but I hope we can pick up on this slide again in our next meeting if we run out of time here. But Travis, this is a very simple slide when you understand what it is. There are 4 lines there, okay? And then on the bottom, you see hours. The 4 lines are salt water, epinephrine, norepinephrine, and the combination of epinephrine and norepinephrine. And as you can see, over time, epinephrine kills a few, norepinephrine kills more, but the combination of epinephrine and norepinephrine, after about 6 hours, had killed about half of the mice who received that combination. Now, Travis, you had a combination of epinephrine and dopamine, not epinephrine and norepinephrine, but there's no evidence to suggest that the combination of epinephrine and dopamine is any less dangerous than epinephrine and norepinephrine. Uh, Although there's just no science about it. In the Dr. Lou study, they didn't use dopamine. B, are you coming on to give us a warning?
Yes, I am. Aren't
Told you
I
so.
mean?
Gosh, it's been 30 minutes already. Flew by.
I know time flies.
Well, Travis, in our next meeting, how about we pick up with this slide and let's go from here?
Sounds good, Dr. Smith. I think that's a good idea.
All right, Chrissy's going to take it away now, and we'll see you again tomorrow.
Excellent. Well,
Thanks,
y'all have a
Michael.
blessed day. Thank you for coming. And thank you for joining us with Live Talk with Dr. B, Monday through Thursday, 12:30 to 1. And we'll see y'all next time. Have a blessed one.
This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome back to Live Talk with Dr. B. Hill. Today we are going to discuss the catecholamines. We're going to discuss the life expectancy, etc. So we're going to welcome back our guest today. So Dr. B.
Thank you so much, Chrissy. And today is going to be pretty exciting when we're talking about life expectancy and everything that goes on with the opioids turning off of our parts of our DNA and not working properly. Like, and I believe Dr. Smith has mentioned this before, like turning off a light switch where you're in the dark because you can't cook, you can't bake, like he said there in the last show. Can't bake those cookies if there's no light and the oven doesn't work. All right, so there you go. Hi, Travis. How are you?
Hi, Dr. B. How are you doing?
Wonderful. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to the two of you, and I will be back.
Thank you, Dr. B.
Travis, how are you?
I'm doing good, Dr. Smith. How about yourself?
Doing well. Thank you very much for asking. We agreed we were going to pick right back up with this Dr. Lou slide, and Travis, I was thinking about I was trying to remember back the first time I saw this slide, and it took me a while to find this study, and when I did find the study, uh, and I narrowed it down to this one slide, I remember just looking at this, going, what what have we done? What have we done to these people? Because by this point, we had done our clinical study. We had done our clinical trial. Travis, we had drawn blood on yourself and 14 other people while they were in opioid withdrawal. And we saw sky high levels of catecholamine, sky high levels of adrenaline. And then according to this study, according to what you're looking at right here, um, the mice that experienced catecholamine toxicity, a bunch of them died. And they died in a relatively short period of time. With the bottom line there, the epinephrine and norepinephrine line, half of them were dead in about 6 hours. And I'm thinking back to all of the people who millions of people who have experienced opioid withdrawal, such as what you went through, Travis, and have gone to the hospital to look for help, or have been thrown in jail and laid on the floor and gone through this. Uh, uh, and uh, how many of these people died? What have we done? Okay, because my study, rat studies, and human studies, there's a reason we do mice studies. They correlate very, very well. So if this is the line that you see in mice, well, this is pretty much the line you're going to see in humans. And I remember sitting there when I found this. I remember saying to myself, "What have we done?" Travis, you've been through opioid withdrawal, and you said you felt like you were going to die.
Yes, Dr. Smith. That's exactly how I felt.
Looking at this study by Dr. Liu, and this was done in 2020, done in China, done with mice, and done by giving mice. Some mice got salt water, basically nothing, and nothing happened to those mice. Some mice got boluses of epinephrine. Some mice got norepinephrine, and some mice got both epinephrine and norepinephrine. And actually, they weren't boluses; they were continuous infusion, if I remember correctly. I will double check that. And given a continuous infusion of particularly the combination of epinephrine and norepinephrine, these mice died, and they died rapidly. And if you look into the study, they died um, horrible deaths. These mice suffered. This was not a non-violent death. These mice died, with heart rates, well over 400, which mice have a different resting heart rate anyway. But they died with very rapid, very high heart rates, and basically, these rats died because the heart beat so hard and so fast that the heart outstripped the oxygen supply, and the heart died. And that's how these mice died. The heart beat so hard and so fast that the heart outstripped the lungs' ability to bring in enough oxygen. And when cells don't have enough oxygen, the cells die. And if you get enough cells that die in a heart, that is what a heart attack is. So, Travis, when you experienced this, was your heart beating hard and fast?
It's weird, but yes, it'll beat fast for a while, then it'll like slow down again, then it'll beat fast some more, and then it'll stay like that. When I was sick, when I was going through withdrawal, but towards the third day, it kind of felt like I was having a never-ending anxiety attack. But the first couple of days, it was like a roller coaster. It was up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Like my heart would be normal, and then all of a sudden it'd be beating out of my chest. Or I mean, I remember I hopped in the shower on the second day and I let the water just run over my face and my body because I was panicking. And I've never really had panic attacks ever a day in my life, but when I went through withdrawal, it always happens for whatever reasons. Like I get panic
Knowing what
attacks.
you knowing what you know now about the norepinephrine levels, the epinephrine levels, and the dopamine levels, is it possible that what you're labeling as a panic attack, and it may be that you're using that label for lack of a better term, not that I have a better term,
Yeah, I
but
probably
is it,
shouldn't use that word, but
well, I don't have a better word. I
I
don't
was
know
just
a
trying
better.
to get people to understand what it felt like in a way. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like my heart was beating out of my chest real bad, and I mean it's more than just that, but it's, you're sweating, your nose is running, your eyes are watering, you're 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 so tired, fatigued, but at the same time your heart's beating up out of your chest. Like I don't know how to explain it. Like it's weird. Like it's like you have the flu times 20 times 100 even, and then on top of that you're like having this, I don't know, I don't even know how to explain. It's a hard situation to explain. um it's just that's just being sick off opioids. That's just how you feel. In general, every time I've ever been sick I felt that way, not just with the study.
When the
The
sickness would
study was
come
the
on,
worst because that was the longest time I've ever went being like that.
why? When is it that in the past when the sickness would come on, is it that you would find something?
Oh yeah, I would go get something. Like if you could feel it, you can feel it coming on. So like there's stages to the sickness. So you know right away when you're getting sick. So you're like, all right, I got a couple of hours and then I'm gonna be really sick, so I gotta hurry up. And then if I really don't hurry, by the end of the day, I'm not even gonna be able to get out of bed. So you gotta find something. So you're on a mission. Like once you know you're gonna be sick, you don't do anything else but try to find medicine because nothing else matters at that point. And then once you find your medicine, you can go back to your normal life. But I mean, it's hard to explain, but that's literally how you think.
Travis, fentanyl kills people. When people are sick, is the sickness so bad that they don't care about the risk of fentanyl?
Um, yes, you don't care. You're willing to take anything.
You hesitated.
Yeah, because I wanted to put myself back in that time because it's been so many years. It's been a couple of years, since I've been off of opioids. Um, and I just wanted to sit myself back. I like kind of wanted to sit myself back into that time and think about how I was, what I was thinking, and yeah, you don't care, you don't, because I
So the
actually
sickness,
overdosed. I actually overdosed off of those fake 30 milligram. I think they were I can't remember the name of them. They were M boxes. They were M-Box 30 milligrams. It was the Roxycontin, if I'm not mistaken, or oxycodone, but it was the Roxys. The 30 milligram Roxys, the little blue ones. Years ago, before I got clean, that's when fentanyl first got really introduced on the scene heavily. And what I mean by heavily is when they flooded the streets with fentanyl years ago, it wasn't in the pure form that it is now. Like now you can just go buy chunks of it in pure form. But back then they would disguise it inside of pain pills. They would make this fake batch of pain pills with fentanyl in it, and one pill might make you feel good or not be sick, but the next pill might kill you because they weren't weighing out what they were putting in each pill. They were just dumping it in there and probably mixing it in and then putting it through the pill pusher. But that's what I was dealing with years ago. Now it's a lot different. These kids are buying straight fentanyl. They don't care. Me, I was buying the fake pills, which sometimes I would know they were fake and I didn't care, and then sometimes I didn't know. But the day that I overdosed, I knew they were fake pills. The guy told me, he's like, listen, these are fake. They got fentanyl in them. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be fine because, my tolerance, I've been doing this for years. So I don't think I have anything to worry about. But unfortunately that day I got, a pill that had too much, fentanyl in it. So I remember, well, I don't remember, but I remember I woke up in a hospital bed. Thank God the people I was with, they didn't just dump me on the side of the road or run off and let me die like a lot of people do. It happens to a lot of people, so I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I was just, it was a very unlucky day for me. But yeah, to answer your question, no, you don't care. You don't care if it's fentanyl. You just don't want to be sick.
Which is worse, the physical or the mental sickness?
God, I'd say the physical. The physical's so bad. The mental comes on later. Like you're thinking about it. Like I don't know how to explain this either. Like you're freaking out about not being sick. You are freaking out. But the physical is where it really gets you. And then once you go through that physical so long, that's when it beats you down mentally and you're just like, "Oh my God, I want to die." I don't know if that makes sense or not. But it's almost like a systematic chain of events. Like you start feeling sick, so you go on your search. If you never can find your search for opioids, you continue to get worse with your sickness. So by the time you get so sick, you're mentally already exhausted and drained. So by the end of the couple of days or whatever, however long it takes you to find your opioids, you're so beat down and mentally drained, you just rather die than go through the physical illness anymore anyways. At least that's what happened with me. And I think I could speak for a lot of other people who have done opioids. I mean, it's just a nightmare. It's almost like the opioids have control of your soul. Like and I hate to say it like that. Maybe that's a bad choice of words, but I didn't feel like I had control over anything when I was on opioids. Nothing. I mean, all I thought about was how to get, if my prescription was running low, or if I had a few more days before I was going to get my prescription, and I knew I couldn't find something, or I was having a hard time lining something up, I would already go into panic mode right away. And you're talking, 2 days before I ever ran out. And I'm already, frantically trying to find ways to find other opioids because I know, listen, I only got 2 days worth here. I don't get my prescription for 4 or 5 days. This ain't gonna work. I can't be sick for 2 days. I gotta work. I gotta take care of my family. I gotta be able to function. But towards the end, when you hit rock bottom, well, when I hit rock bottom, my rock bottom, anyways, it doesn't matter because you can't function anyways. You're so worried about trying not to be sick, you can't do anything. That's all you're focused on. And it gets so bad towards the end where you need so much more opioids not to get sick that it ends up taking up all your time and energy and effort, and that's all you even care about. And it for me, I've said it before, it's pills, heroin, or fentanyl nowadays, and then coughing. That's all the opioids will lead to. You're gonna die. You're gonna die if you can't find a way to break free from it. Get on buprenorphine, um, get on Suboxone. You're gonna die. I mean
And what you're
that's all.
talking about there is people dying from the risk of the street opioids.
Yes, from the street. Yeah, but the problem is, even when you're on the opioids that are, prescribed, 9 times out of 10, everybody that I've known that have died from street drugs, they were on pain medication prescribed
Right,
by a provider before that ever happened.
right.
And most of them also were not like avid drug users. These weren't people that you would see out hanging outside at the store, high off drugs, running around. Like, we're not talking about these kind of people. Like literally the opioids changed who they were as a person inside and out. Like it's just unbelievable, the transformation of some of the people that I've known in the past. And I'm not talking in a good way. Like it's just completely, like it just destroys them. It eats them alive, inside and out. And
So
I feel like
Travis, hold right there. I want to ask a question right there. Okay, I hear you. I hear you, but I want to hear more. Okay, I heard what you just said, but I'm sitting here questioning. Okay, you're saying the person changed, and I'm believing you. The person changed. But what's not clear to me is what what was the fundamental cause of the change? What was the root cause analysis of the change? Why did the change occur? And in my way of thinking, what caused the change was both the severity of the sickness and the fact that the sickness is associated with a catecholamine toxicity and adrenaline toxicity, because part of the function of epinephrine is to make sure that whatever happened never happens again. So, to my way of thinking, what was driving this behavior was the effect of the epinephrine toxicity. That no, I as a living organism am never going to experience that state of being again. I don't care if I have to spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I will get what I need to make sure I'm never that sick again. And to me, that's the epinephrine talking.
I agree with you. I agree with your science 100%. Um, I agree with this the graph that we have on the screen. I mean, I just and then if you add, the DNA being changed, the receptors being all messed up, everything like that, we need more research, like you said before. But if you look at the facts that we have and the scientific facts that we have, and if you talk to other people who've been on opioids, it's all going to line up.
Yeah.
But I mean, I agree with you on the epinephrine statement. What you said, I agree with that, with the
You
adrenaline.
mentioned the slide on the screen, Chrissy. When you get a moment, let's jump ahead to the next slide, because if we're right, Travis, and we are, but if we're right, then in parallel with this opioid crisis, we should see a massive epidemic of heart attacks, a massive epidemic of cardiovascular deaths. Cardiovascular deaths are mostly heart attack, stroke, aortic dissection. These are the catastrophic cardiovascular deaths. And Travis, you see the screen right there, and you see the little blip at the end. That little blip at the end of the graph there, where it starts to go back up, that coincides perfectly with the opioid crisis. These are cardiovascular deaths going all the way back to 1900. And as you can see, as America grew, particularly as smoking grew, the cardiovascular deaths went up and up and up and up and up. But finally, the cardiologists got to a point to where they got a handle on this, and the cardiovascular deaths started to decrease. And they continued to decrease until about the time of the opioid crisis, and all of a sudden we see an upward blip. We believe that upward blip is driven by widespread, non-recognized, untreated catecholamine toxicity. Travis, exactly like what you experienced, but you're a relatively young man. Okay, what would have happened to you that day if you had been 57 years old and a smoker with a strong family history of cardiovascular disease? What would have happened if you had
Stop
a
it.
lesion? Hello? I don't know what that was. Anyway, what would have happened if you'd had a lesion in your heart, and then on top of that lesion, you dump a whole bunch of catecholamines, epinephrine? You would have died.
Yes. And I,
And in
I,
fact,
I honestly think the only reason I didn't die is because my body ran out of adrenaline. That's my personal opinion.
I happen to believe with that. If you're young, adrenaline will still eventually kill you, but there just may not be enough adrenaline in your body to kill you. If you're older, particularly if you have other risk factors, yeah, you definitely got enough adrenaline in your body to kill you. And Christy, when you get a moment, let's jump ahead. And what we're looking at here, Travis, is during this opioid crisis, U.S. life expectancy has stalled. It's fallen. It's stopped. It's gotten worse. But it hasn't gotten worse from drug overdoses. It got worse from cardiovascular disease. U.S. life expectancy has stalled due to cardiovascular disease, not drug deaths. Travis, that's just staring us right in the face. And what's amazing is people can't, the CDC has not been able to put one and one together. 1 plus 1 equals 0 to the CDC.
Mm-hmm.
When I look at this data, it's just amazing. And we even took our data to the CDC, and even when they looked at the data, the very data we're looking at, even when they looked at the data, they didn't connect the dots. To me, that's just a level of incompetence. But Travis, are you surprised, given your experience with opioid withdrawal? Number one, are you surprised that some people did die from it? And number two, are you surprised that it's so deadly that so many people died that it cut down life expectancy in this country?
To be honest with you, no, I'm not. I'm not surprised that opioids has been responsible for people's deaths, especially with the cardiovascular side of it. Because when you look at the catecholamines from the blood work, the adrenaline levels, the epinephrine and the dopamine levels on mine, for one, it was so high, I should have died. So no, it
You
doesn't.
you you would have. I think you eventually would have if your body had not run out. One of two things is going to happen. One of three things is going to happen. You're either going to take something and get out of withdrawal, or your body's going to run out of adrenaline, run out of catecholamines. The adrenal glands will be empty, or you'll die of adrenaline toxicity, catecholamine toxicity. Yes, one of those three. Yes.
And I was going to tell you this as well. I went to my provider a few months back, and actually, I can't remember exactly what happened, but I had my prescription bottle, and I think there was like two more left in it, and it was two or three. It was enough to get me through that last day. And I misplaced them. I eventually found them, but I misplaced them the day before. I forget what I was doing, but I was doing something and I got busy, and then I misplaced the bottle. But really, I went and hid it in my closet. Make sure my kids couldn't get it. I hid it in like underneath all my clothes in my closet. But I forgot all about it, and I actually went to my doctor's office the next day, almost sick. Like, and what I mean by almost is, I lost it that night. By the time I woke up in the morning, I wasn't feeling good, but it hadn't quite hit yet. But I knew it was coming. But by the time I got to the doctor's office, I was already feeling terrible. And of course, he was writing me my prescription that day. He took my blood, and he made a comment, and I've been with this guy for a while, but he made a comment to me. He said, "Your the methylation in your blood is unbelievable." And I didn't even know he checked for that, but he made that comment to me. I meant to tell you that the other day, because I was actually going to see if I could get the blood work results. Whatever he did, I wanted to see it, because he made that comment about the methylation inside of my blood work. So I thought I would mention that to you, not to get off subject, but I thought that was very interesting that he said that.
We'll work with Dr. B and see if we can bird dog that down. I'm always interested in any and all blood work that was drawn on people while they were in withdrawal, because we have so little of it available. And frankly, we called an emergency halt to our clinical trial because we felt that some of the values were incompatible with life. And we thought that the risk was too great to ask people to go into opioid withdrawal. So the ability to study this in the future is going to be limited to mice, limited to animals. It's too dangerous to let humans experience opioid withdrawal, which brings us back to all these people that went to the hospital, begged for help, and were basically just thrown out on the curb. Now, those hospitals were required by law, the EMTALA law, EMTALA. Those hospitals are required to stabilize everybody before discharge. They did not stabilize those people before discharge. That is going to be a huge legal issue coming up.
You want to know why? They probably labeled them as a drug addict. And once you get labeled as a drug addict in the hospital, they don't help you. They don't do
No,
anything for you.
no.
It happened to me when I was on my medication years back, and I was still going in and out of my surgeries. I had and I'm not trying to be nasty on here, but I had blood coming from my rectum, and it was the dark colored blood where I knew that I felt like I had a protrusion somewhere, because I've had one before in my colon years ago. My colon was so infected, or what do you call it? Inflamed, not infected, excuse me, but inflamed, that it protruded. There was a small protrusion at the bottom of the colon. And if they didn't fix it, which they had to go in and do surgery, and that got into my bloodstream, it could have killed me. Well, I went in there concerned about this, and I had history on my doctor's report, but they had already labeled me like someone who was chasing a high. And knowing that I'm prescribed pain medicine, knowing that I'm in and out of surgeries, they've seen me every other day, because I was sick every other week at the time when I first got on my prescriptions. And so I thought that was very odd for them to kind of like red flag me like that. But push come to shove, they let me go that night. The next morning, I ended up in the hospital for a week and a half. I almost died. My white blood cell count was like a 31,000. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's supposed to be 9 to 11,000 is regular for the age that I was back then. I don't know about now, but back then they said 9 to 11,000. Maybe I don't know. It's been a long time since I've had a flare up, but because I had all those surgeries. But yeah, they pretty much, once they label you as a drug addict, they're not going to believe anything you say. They're not even going to do any tests. They're going to tell you they did tests, and they didn't even do any tests. And then once you get your bill back, you'll be like, they didn't do anything. I mean, all they did was like pretty much sign me in and sign me out. But yeah, I mean, that's another problem with the medical industry, is that you got to quit labeling people, like, no matter what their age, gender, sexuality, no matter who they are, what they're doing, how they're living. If someone says that they're hurting and needs help, they need to take it seriously. I don't care if you know that they smoke crack. I don't care if you know that they're alcoholic. That doesn't matter. That's even more reason for you to pay attention and make sure that there's nothing wrong with these people, because you know, obviously they're not living right, so their bodies are probably, heavily impacted by that. So it's just, I don't know. That's one thing when you made that comment, I wanted to speak on, because it's happened to me in the past.
These hospitals are bound by law to stabilize prior to discharge. That it doesn't matter what they think about the person. It doesn't matter what their personal opinions are. These people came in with loss of control of their autonomic nervous system. They came in with catecholamine toxicity. They came in with adrenaline toxicity. They begged for help, and they were kicked to the curb. They were discharged prior to stabilization. They were discharged in a true emergency situation. They were discharged at a risk of death. Some of them, I'm pretty sure, probably did die after they were sent out from the hospital, particularly those with any underlying heart disease. That's going to come back and haunt these hospitals. There's a 2-year window, a 2-year statute of limitations on EMTALA, EMTALA, Emergency Medicine Treatment and Active Labor Act. It's a very serious law, and it carries a $100,000 fine in addition to whatever the individual patient collects. So it's a law that the hospitals understand well, and I'm hoping we can use that law to get the attention of some people and put an end to this sending people out because they're just drug addicts.
I agree with you, Dr. Smith.
There's Chrissy.
Yep. I know time flies, right? Absolutely. But it's a great discussion, and I love to hear about it, and I love it when you guys come back. So, thank you so much for joining Live Talk with Dr. B every Monday through Thursday, 12:30 to 1. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
everyone. Don't forget to ask those questions as you find that you have a question you'd like to ask. And even if you are watching the recording, please send in a question. We can still answer it online, and you can catch it next time that you watch the recording. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.